All right, if we can get the meeting started, I'd like to call this finance meeting to order. First, we have assignment of requests for council actions. We have 1931, then and now payment to, is it Civica? CMI Municipal Court. 1932, then and now payment of Huntington Bank Municipal Court. 1933, elected officials' salary fees. 1934, letter of arrangement with the Auditor of State. 1935, increased expenditure for Goodyear tire and rubber for the sanitation department. And 1936, expenditure over $15,000 for HSH construction for the streets. 19005, bulk water rates. I don't know if the committee chair wants to talk about that first. Came out of your committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Water and Utilities Committee met, and on the advice of Mr. Durham, we decided that as far as bulk water rates go, it doesn't affect city private usage at all. But bulk water rates, when you purchase the bulk water, there'll be a minimum fee if you buy under the 4,000 gallon amount. So you'd be billed for 4,000 gallons. If you don't buy more than that, we feel it's based on billing and usage that it's a fair minimum standard to set as far as billing and paperwork and bookkeeping procedures go.
So you'll just, when everybody uses it, you just charge them the rate of whatever it's for 4,000 gallons and just...
Right. If they purchase under 4,000, it'll be a minimum fee.
Right.
Over 4,000, whatever, how much they buy.
And we're currently at $4.50, so that'll be an $18 bill. And it gets my office out of sending these $2 bills where we spend more money on postage and time trying to collect the money than we actually get.
It really, right now, at this time, only affects one hauler.
We decided that 450 would stay.
Makes sense. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, 1916, petition for detachment from the city of Medina to Lafayette Township. And we have Mr. Sheets here, and he has additional information. As you recall, we had 2 meetings. One, Mr. Sheets couldn't attend, and I think that's when all the questions came up, after we started looking through the information. And I think Mr. Sheets is going to present us with answers to those questions, because he received minutes of the meeting, so he knows all the questions that we asked.
That is correct.
Okay.
All right. First, I've given all of you a packet, and I'd like to kind of run through the first couple pages of the packet first. The very first thing was just my memo over to the mayor, that I had a chance to drive out there, look a little further into this more greatly. If you flip the page, you'll go to the next, which will be the Medina County tax map. And I just want you all to see this. The city is marked in gray. The township is all the white that you see, and the blue up in the left-hand corner is the dual jurisdiction, Lafayette Township and the city of Medina together. The reason I wanted you to see this is, I brought you a bigger picture of a wider area so you could see that entire corridor down through there where our subdivision is, including Rosemont Way, the Ryan Farms, and then our Dover Highlands are all in the township. And you may or may not remember back in the 1990s, we had offered that to the city of Medina because that was an extension of our Greenhaven subdivision to the east. If you go to the east and you look at West Sturbridge and all the streets over there, that was the Greenhaven subdivision. That's where we donated the land, or we worked out the deal with the school to pick out where they wanted to put one of the schools, etc. And our subdivision went through from State Route 3 to Ryan Road. This was the logical extension. But at that time, between the leadership, John Coyne and Pam Miller, you had kind of pretty much decided you weren't going to take any more annexations at that time. So that's why you see that sliver or peninsula within. But the other reason I gave this to you is I wanted you to get an idea of the number of houses that back up to the rail currently. There's over 150 homes that back right up to this spur. It's active, but it's not like a train, a through train or anything. It's only when they're moving cars. But you have, houses on Rosemont Way, north and south. You have houses in the Greenhaven subdivision on the east and west side of the railroad, north of where the railroad crosses. And then you have all of Conestoga, carriageway and part of Wagon Trail, that's part of the Ryan Farm subdivision that the Kern brothers did. Their lots back up to it. And then you come down to Wycliffe and all of our streets, which was the 285 lot subdivision we have done in Lafayette Township. We have 5 lots left in there, and that's why this has been brought to the head, because we want to finish our subdivision. We currently have 52 cluster homes within the subdivision on Wycliffe Drive as you enter, and then all the rest are estate homes within the subdivision that have been built since 2004. One of the questions that came up was when we acquired the land. We actually contracted to purchase the land in 2002, took almost a year of due diligence. In 2003, we actually took title to the land. So that subdivision has been in effect 9 phases since 2004 through 2019 to complete. And that's where we hit the recession and you had the bump. It's when unmistakably Premier Homes was building a lot of the homes and Pelton was building, and then they would, all that came to a halt for those 2 or 3 years. And then we picked up again with Ryan to complete the subdivision. Then on the back side of that, I wanted you to see, I didn't know the mayor was going to have a drawing done, or, that's very nice. This is just showing the relationship between where our lot is, 2490, right at the end of Wycliffe Drive, in relation to Sealy Mattresses' 11-acre parcel, of which they're only using about 6 acres at this time. And then the 3M 2 parcels that are composed of about 25 acres. They have a 60-foot strip, and then they have the 23.166 acres with 704 feet of frontage for 3M. And then to the north of that is Spray Products with 600 feet of frontage. I just want you to see all of this in relation so you get an idea of the distances and how these things are laid out at this time. The next drawing that I have, next sheet that I had available for you, there are 2 large maps. The one is up and down, the north is where it says map, and the other one, when you put map, you're north. So just to get an idea, I'm going to look at the tall one first, the perpendicular one. Again, this is the aerial photography of the area, showing the relationship of Spray Products to the north, 3M, then the big vacant lot that 3M still owns, the small 60-foot strip that 3M owns, as well as what is being occupied by Sealy, which is the last lot where you see all the trucks in the back. And then again, their lot goes all the way back to the rail. And then to the south of that is our 8.29 acres. I drew a heavy black line across there. It's just hard to see on this black and white. But that black line is approximately 60 feet north of Wycliffe Drive. And then if you go to the south extremity of that, the south line is down there by where you see that pond, and it's almost 900 feet till you get down, or 800 and some feet till you get down to the south end of our property. But you should also note approximately 200 to 300 feet further south is where your lease ends. I put a dark line below our line to show you where on the railroad your 3.7 mile lease ends. All right, and that's very noteworthy because when you read the lease, which I was able to find the base lease, it's for 3.7 miles. But when you read the license agreement, it's for 3.6 miles. And the reason is that that's 1/10 of a mile. There's about 445 feet of track that is no longer there. It was taken out either before or during when the bike rail trail was installed. So even though you have rail that goes down 220 feet from Wycliffe Drive south, and I put a line where that 220 feet ends, you only can use 120 feet of it currently because there are big piles of dirt and stone as a barricade to ensure that trains can't go further south or cars can't get loose and go further south. And then you have another 100 feet of track. However, in the event that Sealy would ever wish to reactivate or in the event Sealy goes out of business, which you're concerned about, or would sell to someone else, and they would want to put the spur in, you would not only have to work with them on the spur, you'd have to work with them on about 600 to 700 feet of additional track on your spur to go south in order to give them stacking capability for any cars to get into their siding. Because their siding comes in at an arc, at an angle, and you have to do the same thing like you have for spray products at this time. So I just want you to understand the hurdles, and it could happen. What I found in my research, the permanent easement for the rail siding is still in effect. It was never abandoned, and it was never terminated. That means that our conceptual plan would be revised to a preliminary plan if we ever get that far with Lafayette Township, because we'd have to stay out of that easement area to make certain that was still available in the event that eventuality occurred. So we have no problem with that, and in talking to the Park District, they don't have no problem either, because in my conceptual plan, we showed 3 times the amount of parking that they anticipated having there. They're talking about maybe 6 to 10 spaces. I had 20-some, almost to 30 spaces. So it's easy enough for us to move things around. Plus, our preliminary plan shows for 30 maximum units, it could be 26 or 25. We may have to add some other open space in order to provide additional distance between where the rail would be. But we have no problem with that. We would plan around it. So we're not here to set something up that makes that eventuality impossible. We want to make it so it works for everybody that's involved. So that, I hope, will give you some pictorials. You can see these things and look at them and get a pretty good idea of what's going on in relation to the overview, both by the tax map, the township jurisdiction, the city's jurisdiction, and your current situation with the track. Now, yes, sir.
Looking at the Wycliffe and looking at the spur for Sealy, as you mentioned, if Wycliffe Drive went over the current tracks that are city-operated tracks,
Yes.
do they also have to go over the spurs, or what would happen to the spur?
Oh, yeah, we go over the spur, absolutely.
Because that spur kind of arcs.
Yes.
And it would
Yes,
have,
that would have to be dealt with, and we as a developer would have to deal with it. We deal with that when we put a street in. We've done grade crossings before. We've done them in the townships. That's not an issue for us. And we have found that no signalization is required on a township road. You have that on Imagine Lane. Imagine Lane is right off of Ryan Road. You have signalization on Ryan because it's a county road, but you do not have it on Imagine Lane in the township because it is a township road, and it is not required, plus it's not an active track
Actually,
with regular
that's-
service.
It has no bearing whether it's county or township. We're dictated by PUCO.
By number of cars, too.
Number of cars, it
Sure,
doesn't
sure.
matter what type of road it
It's
is.
both of those things. But I mean, we have several places where we've crossed in townships.
now on the spur, if you go over the spur, the grantor would have probably been, of course, the owner of the property at that time. The grantee, I assume, is the owner of the Sealy property?
Sure.
And, I mean, is it...
Oh, the grantor? Yes, the grantor was Sealy's successor. That was Amos and Ed Mears,
Oh.
Medina Development Corporation, and Henry and Blanche Abel. That was part of the Elm Dairy Farm years ago, went all the way down that far. They gave the easements jointly to the railroad, and those are for perpetuity. They also gave private easements to cross that railroad track, which I have in the title report, because House and Abel's all owned on both sides of the track, and you had to be able to cross. And it's not just for farm implements, it's for vehicles, traffic to cover.
Now, that kind of leads to the first question that we discussed at our previous meeting. If the crossing can go in, even though there's not signalization, it's my understanding that the physical area within the easement area for the railroad, the structures or concrete would have to be maintained and by the owner of the railroad. Because I don't think nobody ever lets other people come in there and mess with the tracks. And I think that's an obligation, at least in the city where we have, correct, Pat? Where you get to pay for the concrete between the rails and on the other side of the rails.
Right, the crossing itself, the at-grade crossings, Those are, last one we did was about 110,000, if I remember.
So
right.
can we make Lafayette pay for them, or we gotta pay for them?
Well, we have to, that's an interesting question. I know for our consortium, we have it in our agreement that the consortium, which are the three users and the city, pays for 50% of the cost of repair or reconstruction, and the city, through 108 funds, pays for the other 50%. We have the same agreement, it's kind of a handshake agreement with Wheeling, but the last couple, like State Road, between Smith and Liberty, and then the two we did on West Smith with our project that are Wheeling crossings, we share those 50-50.
Well, I guess the question was, on a consortium agreement, would we have to get their permission to add another crossing?
That's a good question, I don't know that.
Well, again, and if we're in the township, we'd be the ones dealing with that in conjunction with you, because we would be accepting that responsibility.
Well, I don't think
to
you'd be
pay for the
accepting-
grade crossing.
Well, the ongoing maintenance would be our obligation, though.
Maintenance of the track is always ours. The grade
Track.
crossing, which is basically the street crossing, that's kind of the debate, who's responsible for that, because that's more expensive.
So, like, if we wanted to do something, would we record an agreement? Would you mandate some, like the township to take care of it, or do an agreement in perpetuity with the developer? I mean, how do you make, if the developer goes away, who maintains it then?
Well, if you dedicate the road, normally it's dedicated, the city accepts the dedication, and then it's our responsibility.
Or the township, or the county. And this is not going to be dedicated to the city.
Well, I think that's our rail, so I think that the odds are that the city will end up being responsible for the maintenance.
Between in the easement area you're talking about?
Right.
Well, that's the question. I mean, that's,
Well, who's responsible for Imagine Lane?
We are responsible for the rail.
and there's concrete in between the rails?
I don't think they're using concrete anymore, are they? Aren't they using sections that they put in? They
The
put stone base
it's
in?
precast concrete, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question. Since it's been in place, we haven't had to rebuild it. But that is Lafayette Township.
It'll be-
I would assume it's there.
I've already talked to them about it, and they understand if this is their road, they're looking at maintaining it. They're
Like I
going to
said,
get the
I think we've
taxes.
maintained it, our street department, when there's been some issues, but that's minimal cost. The big cost, and it's gonna have to be replaced, these things only last about 15 or 20 years, and that's probably the age of the Imagine Lane, is rebuilding it, you know, that's.
So we're gonna find out soon.
Pardon me?
We're gonna find out soon, you're
We're gonna
telling
find
us.
out soon, yeah.
Who's gonna pay for that? Okay. All right, that was my question, okay. All right.
Any other questions before I go on? I don't want to belabor you with this, but I want to give you as much information and answer those questions that did not come up.
I do have a question with regard to the crossings. There is a unused spur going over to Sealy. Are we going to have to build a crossing there as well?
Potentially.
But like during the construction?
No, if Sealy decided to put it in, they'd be responsible for taking it up and putting it in. It's on their land,
It would be on their-
and they would be getting to there. That would be, I've talked to their plant manager, 4 of them. Every one of them over the past 12, 14 years says they're not interested. They deliver door to door. They operate from 4 in the morning, their trucking systems, till 8 at night, deliveries. And then they pick up and bring materials back to the shop. 4 in the morning, because if you guys don't do this, and Sealy would come along and say, hey, we'll take it, you know, the thing would go, there's a warehouse, and they're trucking. They would, you know, they rent space for their trucks and trailers, and they rent space for their warehouses. They would probably consolidate it. Then I got to deal with neighbors with trucks starting at 4 in the morning and smoke, you know, every morning, and not coming home till after 8 at night. So it's a delicate balance, I understand that.
Thank you.
Next thing I have is just some, before I go on to any other exhibits, is just some other track facts itself about the tracks. And if I hit these already, I already mentioned about the 120 feet that's active. There's another 100 feet in there, but there's another 445 feet that's long gone, all right? That, you know, the trail is already there. I mentioned to you that you lease 3.7 miles, but your license is only 3.6 miles. That's the 445 feet less, because somebody must have recognized that track isn't there. You didn't have a track to actually lease. And in the event you would work with a successor to Sealy to put in their spur or attach to them, you'd have to have the Park District take up part of their trail, because there's not room for both. That's why you can't go any further north with the trail, even though the Park District owns all the way up to Ryan Road. They have to stop at Wycliffe because they cannot go any further where there's rail in place. when you get to the point, there's 660 to 700 feet from our north property line to the Spray Products spur. 660 to 700 feet. And that's on one of those maps that I gave you, the aerials, to show you how that is. That's stacking for approximately 11 to 12 train cars. I think in the notes it said, Pat, they're using maybe 2 to 3 at this time, but if their growth at that, and that's at most, and I don't know if that's weekly or, I have no clue, you know.
Yeah, I don't think they get deliveries weekly.
I don't either. I'm not aware of that. But I mean, it looks like there's growth for 4 times what they're doing there, even if you cut off the lease or your license down to our north property line, because that would be another option, which takes this out of the picture completely. And then if Sealy wanted to come on, they'd have to redesign their access side, what do you call it? Side attachment to come in at a different angle, because they could come in to the north instead of having to go into the south. There is a way to do that. But again, they don't anticipate it.
Seeing that,
That's all I had really on the track facts, and I think that was some redundance probably.
the question I have, because we have with some other industry along Lake Road and the Strawberry Fields community there, we have received a lot of, complaints, noise complaints. And I don't know, I'm ignorant when it comes to real estate, and you may not have the answer to this. If this were to go through, can you force the developer that's selling houses to say, yeah, here's a beautiful home we're gonna sell you?
Absolutely. We have it in our written disclosure. And we're not selling big houses, estate homes.
No,
We're selling
but I mean, I just so the residents know.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have the possibility, if not probability, of having noise.
Absolutely, but I've met with my homeowners, I represented them, I formed them, I've met with them. They'd much rather have 28 to 30 residences there than another manufacturing that much closer, or a trucking operation that much closer. I know that already, or I wouldn't have even started this, because they support it. They already have cluster homes, they know what it is. This would be catering to seniors or first-time buyers, 1,500 square feet to 1,800 square feet, ranches with a 2-car attached garage, period.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I mentioned that the lease and the assignment and stuff has been in existence since '85. There have been multiple amendments, I believe, to it, and even different companies operating it. But Greg made a comment to Paul Rose at the first meeting that he didn't feel you could transfer any responsibility to other parties. But if you read your own leases, whoever did those leases transferred all the responsibility to the user. Now, that's not the case now, because the mayor told me one of the operators threatened to leave, and then you had to renegotiate it and take on part of those responsibilities. But in those original leases, you had the maintenance on the operator of the tracks, and you had the insurance on them, you had indemnification agreements on them.
Yeah, but none of that worked. That's why we redid everything.
Well, it all worked for 10 years.
Well, it didn't work very well because it fell apart. We had to rebuild these tracks. So, we kind of redid this as a result of the history of what occurred.
I understand that, but I'm just saying you can in fact transfer responsibility. In every single commercial lease I do, I put on the tenant the responsibility for insurance, for indemnification, for whatever they're doing within their buildings. And you would surely attempt to do the same thing if you're in a negotiating process to do this. Also, the question came up from Paul Rose at the first meeting about would this be considered spot zoning? And Greg answered that, yes, that it could be considered. I cannot understand how that could fathom. 3 sides of this area are residential, east, west, and south. The only area that's not residential is the one contiguous to Sealy. I've seen it where a spot zoning is on 1/10 of an acre, 1/4 of an acre, 1/2 acre, or a site like Costello's gas station at East Liberty and Spring Grove, but not on 8 or 9 acres with surrounded on 3 sides by residential. Can't see how that could ever come up as an issue relating to spot zoning. But again, I could be wrong, but I've been doing this for 45 years. I've never run into it as an issue.
So just so the record's clear, when that question came up, that was Jonathan who answered the question.
Yeah. And what did you base that on, Jonathan? When you knew 3 sides were residential, other than,
I think maybe the question is, because it's, the 3 sides are in the township, and this is zoned, anything in the city is zoned industrial, and I think that if there's one little piece that's zoned industrial, that we change it to residential in the city, I'm just speculating here, that's what you're talking about, spot zoning, because there's no other city zoning that's residential around there. It's the township zoning, granted, but it's not the city.
it's not,
Yeah, within the context of being in the city of Medina, if it was rezoned to residential, it could be considered, even at the acreage that it's at, it could be considered as spot
And that's
zoning.
because it's all
But spot
industrial
zoning
zoning?
is a term of art, it's not really a codified
right.
policy or discussion within the city of Medina code. If it's in another jurisdiction, that's the other jurisdiction's responsibility to deal with that policy.
Right, and that was my concern. It will be in another jurisdiction. They had approached us about potentially doing this because it's in addition to the current subdivision that's there. It's just another phase to be added, period. Again, Greenhaven Development has no issue in relation to the spur easement or your spur potential extension. If in fact that needs to be done, we're simply going to design our preliminary plan around that if we ever get that far. The next thing I have were facts about the adjacent subdivisions, just quickly. Ryan Farm subdivision, I mentioned Wagon Trail, Conestoga Trail, Carriage Lane, all have properties that back up to this rail. Strawberry Fields, you mentioned, I know there's been some, but in fact, the rail's been there forever. People know that when they bought the property that it's there. It's not like a fast train going through, it's simply occasionally a delivery or, somebody moving their cars. But there's over 50 homes between North and South Rosemont Way. In Dover Highlands, we have over 25. The difference with ours are all cul-de-sacs that back up to it. So there's only 4 or 5 properties, and we have deeper lots that go to the rear. And then Ryan to the north of the railroad crossing, as you're going up, there's homes on the east side that back up to the track. There's homes on the west side in the Greenhaven subdivision that back up the track and have for over 20 years, I think 25 to 30 years now at this time. Wycliffe currently dead ends into the bike rail trail and your railroad. There's a sign posted at the end of the street, if any of you went there and simply parked and looked at it, it says, "Future Street Extension." We didn't put it there, the county put it there. Because the county puts wherever you stub a street, where on the county thoroughfare plan, it shows a street is to go through. Ultimately, it's to become a collector street, to go through to Lake Road. It's been planned like that since, I believe, the late 1960s, early 70s. Plan has been updated every 5 years, and it still shows as a collector street, and notice has been posted there, again, ever since we put our first street in, which was Wycliffe Drive. I actually forgot about that myself till I'd driven out there a couple times and noticed the extension. Then I called Rob Henwood also to confirm it with county planning, and I called the county engineers to confirm that it was still on the plan as a future extension. Number 7, the title insurance policy, which is not in your file, but it's in John's file and Greg's file, shows that when the policy was issued in 2003, the title insurance company guaranteed there was access across that rail. And it was by 2 private easements in 1939 and 1943 by Medina Development Corporation and Henry and Blanche Abel. We represented Medina Development Corporation, Pelton, and 5 or 7 years later, Sheets. That was Pelton, and Sheets. We represented Amos and Ed Mears and the development company that developed 90% of the Lake Road Industrial Park. So we handled that title work, we covered that, and it's in there to show that it's perfected as an easement. Again, Wycliffe Drive is designated as a collector street. The reason I raised that as an issue, in the file, I gave you the new cul-de-sac proposed at State Route 162 East Leg, and State Route 3 south of Medina. The Pulte new subdivision that's coming to town in Montville Township, again, originally was planned to be in the city of Medina. But no, you decided you didn't want any more. Now you're going to have 268 homes at the corner of Wedgewood and State Route 3, including the Cole Farm, the Crum Farm, 170 acres. 75 is open space. The balance is to be developed in 268 homes. The cul-de-sac, or the roundabout, is being designed as a three-pronged roundabout in 2021. But it's being designed to add the fourth leg to it as soon as Pulte gets that far down to the north. And when they do that, Grovewood is the name of the street that will attach to the roundabout. Grovewood will then attach to Grovewood in Lafayette Township. It's already a subdivision that's in, that Pride One did probably 15 years ago. That street comes into Wycliffe, directly across the street. Again, making a collector street from State Route 3 to Ryan to Lake, which has been planned, as far as I know, for over 50 years. Primarily a residential collector street. It will probably handle some more traffic because employees may use that as a way to get there. It's not to be planned for truck traffic. That would still be on 162. But again, I want you to know it all is in the plan, and it's been in the plan for years. Whether or not it's going to be in the city or not, and if somebody would go to try to build something manufacturing there, they'd have to build around that plan and leave room for where the street could go through. So we have no problem with that. We'd simply be extending the street by about 300 feet, getting it within one lot of being able to be completed in the future when somebody acquires the last house on Lake Road, whether it be the one next to Sealy or the next one down that's got 5 acres, but that's up to somebody in the future, not us. And John brought up as a question, we can't see these spurs blocking traffic. What happens in the city regularly, John, I know you're in Akron most of the time during the day. I come down South Court, it's blocked. I go out Smith Road, it's blocked. I've been over to Imagine Drive when it's blocked. They block it. It can be 5 minutes. I don't know what the limit is. Do you know, Pat? Is it 10 minutes supposedly?
There's a law.
I think it's a 5-minute.
I think it's 5, but I know they've been there 10 because I've sat there.
Because
In
of the
addition,
emergency, yeah.
we are going to have a second way out. Even though our street's not going to go through, we've agreed to work with the Park District to widen their bike rail trail as it goes southwest on our easterly boundary enough to have an emergency way in and out if it would be blocked. So we have an emergency way for life support or fire to come in. We've already worked on all those plans ahead of time, and I assure you we're addressing every one of them. That's all I have on the facts about the subdivision. Is there any questions about the Pulte connection or the Grovewood connection, the fact that it's a collector street, or the fact that it was planned to be a collector street from one arterial to another arterial, being a state route to a county road? Thank you. And I only gave you 1 page of the Hawkesbury report. I don't know if you got the whole thing. It's about 17 pages. And again, it's not approved. It's preliminary plans, but it's going to happen. And there's already a developer that's bought the land to the west of that, across from the Medina Country Club, because they called me and I said, no, I've lost enough hair doing this stuff. I don't need it. But they're trying to do the subdivision across from the country club, and then they're trying to pick up part of what KV has, I think, to the west, to make it enough. But that's to be tied together with this other one in the future. And again, you should have had a copy of this in your file. Again, I don't want to belabor anything. Are there any other questions that you can think of? I have 8 more pages, and these were all references from your minutes, that I went through, but I think I've covered the vast majority of them, unless there's something else that I can answer for you. I can't give you every single answer. I don't have every single answer. But I did deal with Kimberly. Kimberly was upset with me because I was on the phone with her, and her answer is, my job is to preserve the economic benefit to the city of Medina, income tax and real estate base. I respect that. But my answer to that is several-fold. First, you've had the land for 59 years. Not you, but several different owners. There's not been one offer. We've had it for 16 years. We've not had one offer. However, Kimberly called me when the Medina Soccer Association wanted the land to see if we were willing to sell it at 9 acres. That wasn't going to create any jobs. That wasn't going to create any income. Wasn't even going to create any increase in the tax base. And to me, there's a fallacy to the argument. I understand the position, but you've got all kinds of other land still available within the city to market that hasn't been sold yet. There's plenty. I've also mentioned to her that if you really want to expand your industrial park, why wouldn't you be looking at the Farnsworth land, 52 acres directly south of Industrial Parkway that could be tied together with Technological Drive? Because nobody's picking it up right now. The Roy Farnsworth died, his wife wants to sell it, the Park District wants it for an easement, but that's all they want is the easement because they want to be able to go from our land to Buckeye Woods and connect these parks with trails. We're cooperating. They have an easement on our west property line, and they have an easement on our east property line, and they actually have the easement that ties the two together. That's why I didn't know that when we had laid out our parking lot, because it was going to go through part of their easement. But we don't have any qualms with that. We just redesigned it. But we're cooperating in a spirit to get this done. And then Bob Starcher raised the issue of what's the benefit to this city. And the only benefit really that I can see right now is the collector street. It might get some traffic off of the street eventually because people coming in from the south would have another way to get over there. But there are benefits to other places. Part of what the fallacy is, when you sit here as a councilman, you're only looking at your city, and I use the word your fiefdom. It's supposed to be about the whole county and the synergy of everything going on. There are benefits to the township. We're putting over $6 million in investment in this land. We already have $150,000 in sewer and water crossing it because we had to do a loop to Lake Road in 2004. Every tax levy that gets passed by the school district, this money will go to them. Every levy for the library, every letter for their fire department down there. Sure, it's the township, but again, it's Medina County, it's our surrounding areas, and you chose not to have this land in your area. We gave you that opportunity, as we gave you that opportunity also where McDonald's is and the homes there. We had 89 acres there, and you chose not to take it.
I take exception to that, first of all, Stan. I was on council at that time, and you came to council, and we reached a deal to do a development agreement, and I think Mr. Huber can back me up on this. And we reached a deal to do a development agreement, and we had a deal done, and you ran to the township and said, the city's going to take it, you can do this, I'll come with you guys. And that's what happened.
I can show you on the record that's not the case. We filed the annexation was pending, we withdrew it when you decided you didn't want the property.
That's not the fact.
Okay, fine.
I'm
just saying you lost another 1,000 homes there between Montville Township, our development, and Ken Cleveland's developments that you could have the income tax on at an average of $69,000 to $72,000 family's income in all of those subdivisions. My argument was, why wouldn't you take it? You're going to get the burden of all that traffic without any benefit whatsoever. But we're beyond that. I don't want to belabor that. I want to move on here.
Then why'd you bring it up?
I brought it up because it's history.
It's not helping.
I don't care if it's helping.
How about moving on?
That's fine. That's fine. Bottom line, our summary is that we've been in your jurisdiction for 59 years, almost 60. We've not had one request to acquire the land. Amos Mears and Ed Mears were multimillionaires that developed the industrial area. If it had value at that time, they would have developed it. They sold to Ohio Mattress in 1964. They sold this land to the farmer 1 year later because it had no frontage. The only way you can get to this land is on your rail. That doesn't give somebody a way to get in and develop the land. My client has owned it for 16 years with not one inquiry. It was listed for 5 years with Gersbacher, not one inquiry. We're finishing our 285 lot subdivision with 5 lots left. We would like to complete our subdivision where we already have sewer and water in place. We already have 52 cluster homes in the entranceway, all of which were sold approximately 7 years ago, and there's still demand for such a product. We are donating 3/4 to an acre of land to the Medina County Park District and possibly more to make certain we give at least 20 to 25% of the land and dedicate it to open space, as we're required to have a minimum of 20% open space in the subdivision that we're contemplating. However, to accomplish this goal, we must detach from the city of Medina with Medina County support to reattach to Lafayette Township to pursue the implementation of our conceptual plan through the township, county, the planning from conceptual plan to preliminary plan to a final plan. And we are reserving any rights that you wish to allow you to put any spur in or siding that you wish to do so by planning around it. And with that, we respectfully request a recommendation to City Council to allow the detachment. And if you don't do so tonight, then I would ask for another probably 2-week deferral, because I'll simply defer it at the county offices if I need to do so until we come up with something that can make sense.
Does any council member have any questions for Stan or comments, observations or anything?
I guess mine's more of an observation. One is, I don't think it really falls into the category of not being cooperative with the township. And the city has unprecedented cooperation and collaboration with the townships. You know, that if you look at how we relate to the townships to benefit residents in the city as well as the people in the townships, I don't think, you know, we probably stack up against any place, anywhere. I mean, it isn't about that. But the comments that I've gotten just from the people I've talked to I guess are really simple. And it's more, I guess it's somewhat what I think Bob was talking about earlier, is we have a piece of property that's in the industrial area. Granted, nobody's wanted to buy it apparently for a while, and it is contiguous to other properties, though, that could well be expanded. And so some of the people I've talked to have simply said, what are you going to get? What are you getting in return? Not what are you getting, not what is the township getting, and not because we don't cooperate, but simply, why would you give away a piece of industrial property that's in the city to the township when at some point, maybe not now, but maybe in 10 years or 5 years or 15 or 20 years, we may have an expansion or somebody who's interested. What is the benefit? Give me the direct benefit of that.
The only direct benefit I can give you is the collector street, period. That's the only one to fill. And the fact that levies that are passed would all go to benefit common things within the city, be it the library, you know, the park district, etc. We're putting $6 million of investment there if we do this, and we don't have to.
In particular, I guess that it's an interesting question because we're framed in. I mean, the city's framed in.
Absolutely.
We can't birth any more land. What we have is what we have. And so I think in a very, in a very basic way, that question stands. Why would you give away this chunk of property?
Well, we're not really framed in. Remember, we do have cooperative agreements, JET agreements, and things.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant by our cooperation and collaboration. But as far as we having more property that we can suddenly just is ours, it's not there. And it seems like a bit to give away because there is nothing actually that you can tangibly say I'm going to get in return, other than the things you've mentioned about the collector's taxes.
Right.
Mr. Seach used the phrase delicate balance when we're looking at all this, and obviously there are so many contingencies that go either way, for residential, against residential, for industry, against industry. It is a delicate balance, and like Mr. Lamb says, we as purveyors of the land that we own now, we have it in our hands. It wouldn't make me sense to just give it away for the addition of the collector street. Also, as a representative of Ward 1, the issues of residential developments butting against industrial developments, no matter how benign the industry may be now. When I moved into my house in 1978, Progress Drive wasn't there. And everything I heard after that was there's nothing can go in there because there's a Columbia gas line there, so they can't build anything heavy. Well, you fast forward now, I have not one but 2 concrete crushers in my backyard and Patriots Way development. So the people there, I think their head would explode if I voted for putting in residences next to an industrial area. So I just can't see this happening.
Respect your opinion.
Thank you.
Anything good?
The other thing that I have to add to what has already been said is when you look down the road to the future plans, right now, yeah, that plot of land is landlocked, but the county has a plan to extend that street over the lake. Once that happens, it becomes of more value to an industrial person. And so, then we get more value out of it.
It's planned as a
Because you will
residential
have-
street.
But you'll still have access to Lake Road then for that piece of property by virtue of this street. And so I don't think we should be giving away potentially valuable industrial land.
Well, then please, just make your recommendation and proceed. We'll proceed with other alternatives
Eric?
that we have.
agree with the state attorney.
Mayor, do you have anything to add?
Well,
You want to tell them about the Park District, please?
Yeah, I'll tell them that your comment in the phone discussion with Patrick was incorrect, because the meeting I was in with Nate, when Nate said he didn't want your parking lot, was attended by Jansen, Worley, Patrick, and the law director, and all four of us heard him say that.
But since then,
Well, since then, when he came down here, he said he may be interested in a parking lot, but he wouldn't want it on the north end there. He would want it somewhere else, because they have ideas of connecting the park across Lake and through the, I don't remember the owner's name that you mentioned, over on the west side.
Farnsworth.
Okay. So,
Okay, so there's still confusion over that. He told me this is where the logical trailhead was, because the trail could not go any further north because of the rail. But again, please, don't belabor this, simply vote. We have other options.
Well, we're
I
trying-
assure you.
I think the mayor's got something to say.
my concern, it was raised by Councilman Starcher, and it's ongoing, is not only Strawberry Fields with the expansion of Carlisle, but the Yorktown development and the Patriots Way development. And none of these are in proximity, which is why I provided you and Mr. Sheets and the media with a map of how close this is. None of the areas that we're having current industrial complaints are in as close proximity as this piece is. And this just leans itself to further problems. And by the way, the city is handling the policing for Lafayette Township through a cooperative agreement with them. So the residents, if this was approved, would be in Lafayette Township, yet our police department would be tasked with each one of the complaints, be it from the rail, be it from the noise, be it from the trucks, be it from car doors opening and closing too early in the morning, dumpsters being dumped, whatever the case is. There are noise and industrial operations like this, and that's why there's generally more in the city. Without a variance, they can't go closer than 50 feet to their property. This is not 50 feet. This is not close to 50 feet.
And that is exactly why we didn't want industry to come closer to us. But if that's what you prefer, we'll accept that, and we hope you get an industry soon.
Mr. Huber, do you have anything from the legal perspective going over these documents and our lease and our license, or
no, I
any perspective on that?
think the issues have been pretty well discussed.
Okay. Well, I guess we have all the information, and if we had an opportunity to ask questions, specifically regarding this parcel, whether to decash or not. So I don't know if everybody's ready to vote, or they need more time to think about it. But if we want to put a motion up to see if everybody's ready to vote on it, or everybody ready to vote? All right, everybody ready?
Right, so I'll make a motion. The motion's going to be then to detach
Right.
the property.
Yeah, that was the request, to detach it and to be able to go to the Lafayette Township. That's the motion.
So-
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor to detach it? All opposed? Aye. Motion
Very
carries.
good, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stan.
Okay.
Now moving on to item number 4, 1931, then and now for the payment of, is it Civica? CMI Municipal Court.
My presentation is not as long as the previous one. This is a bill that we need to pay for the court, need authorization to pay it.
Now, do we know the background of why we haven't done it now? Is there something that happened?
It's a maintenance agreement, and I just think they didn't get it over in time. It started but not ended.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second. Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
For the emergency.
Oh, with the, I'm sorry.
Is it with the motion with the emergency clause? All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries still. 1932, a then and now payment to Huntington Bank for the municipal court.
Again, this is the court and its emergency clause because it's a bill that we have.
All right. Any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second with the emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have item 6, 1933, elected officials' salaries. Mr. Durham.
Thank you, Mr. President. It may seem odd that we're discussing this so far in advance. The reason is our charter has a provision that elected official salaries cannot be changed except before the term, before the filing deadline for the term. So this has to be done before August of this year for the 4 positions of council that are up for full terms this year. That's the president of council, Mr. Lamb's at-large spot, Ward 2 and Ward 4. If you look at the existing ordinance, we have salaries set out through 2021. We do not have salaries set out for 2022 and 2023. And those 4 positions that I just listed are up this fall for full terms that will run 2020 through 2023. So we need to set salaries for those 2 years.
And there's 2 others that are up, but they're not for full terms.
They're not for full terms, so the salaries for the terms that those are up for are already set because they're only for 20 and 21.
Right.
Then we'll deal with this again a couple years down the road. I mean, unless you wanted to do it now, but I doubt it. To go out 4 years from that.
And it's the new people that, on council that, I don't think we're in the business of giving ourselves raises. I don't think we normally, do that. We did it in the previous years just to deal with the issues from the state of Ohio, I believe it was, with the...
There were some changes with OPERS that we had a significant discussion of last time. These amounts that the OPERS minimum were over, but they still have a minimum for healthcare, which is $1,000 a month. So you do not earn credit towards healthcare for OPERS unless you're earning $1,000 a month, which means as of right now, only the council president is earning credit towards healthcare every time.
Whoever the new council president.
Well, right, whoever the new, that's the only position, pardon me, I apologize for that.
I thought you had to have 20 years as well for medical benefits through OPERS.
That's through whatever OPERS' standards are, but you don't, the years you're getting, if you're earning less than 1,000, don't even count as a year, so
Okay.
you don't have any.
There's no partial years.
All right, but
Right,
for the
and
pension
that's-
plan, for the pension portion of it, are the council salaries set to the point where they could earn a full credit?
Yes, you're earning a full credit, and the other thing is, there is partial credit for pension, there's no partial credit for healthcare. So if you earn, and the minimum right now for the pension, and I have it from the OPERS site, and I guess I didn't include it in this, but it's I think $800, about $800 a month. If you're under, you get partial credit on a proportional basis. So if you make 90%, you get 90% of a month's credit. The healthcare, like I said, there is no proportional credit at all, so it's $1,000 minimum. If you earn $999.99 in the month, you get 0. So that's a much bigger difference than pension, where if you're a couple dollars under, you still earn 98% or whatever percentage it is.
Now, we went through this, and if I recall correctly, are we still the lowest in the county?
If
I think
you want me to
Brunswick's
pull
higher.
I mean, we have plenty of time. We don't have to do this till August. If you want me to pull comparisons.
No, I
can.
just thought from the last time we discussed this.
When we did it
remember-
last time, we were considerably lower than Brunswick, and we were lower than Wadsworth as well.
So I think that we're still, I mean, I don't know if that's good or bad, but just the way it is. But I don't know if anybody here really cares about that.
Well, the last time we went through this, we got a group of residents to review it.
Yeah, they did it. They gave us a
And
recommendation.
they're the ones who made the recommendation. I would re-recommend that we do that again this time to have them.
Well, I mean, we're not even up on the years yet. I see we go to 2021, the changes haven't occurred. I mean, I would wait till at least 2021,
Right.
But
I think-
True,
but what we're trying to avoid
but you
here-
got- But those who are elected to the full terms this year, they're going to stop 2 years into their 4 years. The way this is, then, if I read this correctly,
No,
well, the
no,
salaries...
Eric has to run, and I think Bob
Right.
has to run, but they have to run again
Right.
in 2 years.
So...
We're not talking about that.
Okay, but let's just...
That's the confusion.
The normal ones that would be up this year,
Right.
Because you guys don't know.
you're not far enough in the years to take care of the whole 4-year term.
Right, that's what...
That's right.
that's why
But you gotta look at the pay. These are set up where in 2019, the pay is this, and 2020, the pay is this. I don't think what you're saying, it doesn't mean it starts for us at zero. I think when you're elected, whatever your pay is, that's the pay you get for that year.
correct.
It doesn't go back to zero and start over.
But right now, the pay scale doesn't go into the 4 years of the term.
It ends at whatever you.
We kept it the same.
Well, it stays the same after that. I think that we talked about it.
That's what you decided.
It doesn't go up any, it doesn't go down any. Whatever the final year is, that's what it is, it doesn't change. Just like previous years, if it was, when we started out like $2,400, it stays $2,400 forever until you change it. So when it tops out at, like 9180, it'll stay 9180 forever.
If we do nothing more.
We do nothing more.
Okay.
It doesn't go back to down or up.
Okay, but you don't want to look at, for those who are elected in November of this year, to see if they're going to get any more than 9180 in their last 2 years of the term.
I don't think so. I mean, I guess, if they want to revisit that, if there's all new council members and they want to redo it, they could do it. And then if they want to run again to see if they can get more after their 4 years, everybody's, their eyes are wide open coming in. I mean, there's no secrets. So I don't especially think that, I think that's probably adequate compensation. I don't think that this should be more than that, maybe in the near future. I don't think so. I mean, that's why we went over it.
To avoid the interpretational issue, if you want to leave it the same with no change, I would ask that you.
I think we did that. I think we did that in the
Leave it the
ordinance.
same.
Kathy,
That we pass an ordinance that says the 2022 and 2023 pay.
2021, when they all equaled out. So everybody would.
But
be
from then
safe.
forward, I thought we had the ordinance that there's no changes after that.
No.
That's not how it's worded. If the ordinance is attached to the request, it doesn't say, and I had asked at the time that we say effective in 2021, the annual will be X. It's not worded that way.
Well, I guess we could say that once it tops out on it, it's not going to change. I guess we could probably do an amendment to the ordinance and just say that it's going to remain the same so that everybody understands there's no changes after that.
And for us, if OPERS comes out and said, oh, you're making 90% of a monthly credit right now at your salary, and it's going to still be at 90-some percent at year 2021, all of a sudden, if OPERS comes out and says, yeah, you're only going to get 75% of the credit, then I think we should revisit it, because I think we each want to get, for a pension, as small as it is, we still would like to, maybe not get a full credit for each month, but come close to it.
If you want to do that, they have been making inflationary increases since they.
Well, we talked about this before.
Because for years, they didn't keep up for years. It was $250 a month, and it was that for like 20 years, and then all of a sudden they came in, and I don't remember the exact number, they went to like $640 or something. So it was a huge increase. Well, now they've been doing these inflationary increases, so if you want to maintain that, then I think what you want to do is a 2%, 3%.
I think, my personal opinion is I think go have the other councils, who's ever on council, determine that at the future time to see what they want to do. Because I think the compensation is modified, even though we're still the lowest in the county, it's still more than
I
that.
agree with you.
Yes.
I don't think there's any issue with that, unless somebody has.
And like I said, where I think it would be a problem, that maybe in 23, 24, OPERS, increases the monthly requirement up enough that maybe the member of the
It all depends on what their balance is in their OPERS account.
The problem we have with
They're gonna
OPERS
do.
is they don't usually give us 4 years' notice.
I understand
So
that.
just so you know, that I'm not going to be able to
So,
have
yeah, if
that.
they need more money, they're going to raise the limit.
Right.
So they cut a lot of people out. We just have to live
If
with
you
it.
want to leave it the same, which is what I'm hearing, I would ask that you clarify that the
I think
2022.
I think you're correct.
2023
Going forward, it'll remain the same as whatever the last year is. It'll remain the same thereafter. Is everybody okay with an amendment to the ordinance? What ordinance number is that? It's ordinance,
233.
yeah, 10317, you said
You
it.
still have to come back and ask future councils.
Yeah, I'll still turn in every
Still
2
have
years
to-
a request
still
to
have to do
do
it.
elected
Yeah,
official
that's
salaries.
But I guess the question that I see him asking, and it kind of makes a little bit of sense, is that anybody looking at the ordinance has no idea what happens after 2021.
Right.
So we're just going to clarify saying, nothing's going to happen.
We're going to
after
keep it the
We'll stay at
same
9180.
for the next
Right, we'll
2
stay at
years.
the- whatever the 2021 is.
And then everybody will be equal.
And
Yeah.
the council can decide.
And that was the discussion with Mr. Huber, is an argument could be made that you had a chance to address it, and you didn't, so maybe it's zero in 2022. because council passed an ordinance about it, so.
That might be okay. Stan might be okay with that. So, as we have a motion to amend it to have a 2021 number stay,
Well, first, wait, are we first making a motion to change it?
no, we're not changing anything. I think all we're gonna do is just put a provision in there.
Adopt those salaries for 2022 and 2023. I think that's what you're looking at.
2021
Oh,
salary.
no, wait,
Or
I
for
don't-
2022 and beyond.
Yes, there you
You
go.
just word it that way, and then if,
2022
and then if we
beyond.
never address it again, it always stays at those amounts.
Always will stay at that.
Until
level.
changed.
And so for the next 3 years, for 2 years after this, then we're still going to have different salaries on council.
Right.
Yes. I
You are,
guess,
because in
yes.
2000,
Well, that's because we had some vacancies and that causes the
Right.
issue. We never really planned that people would be leaving.
well, wait, no, you won't, because in 2020, it evens out. In 2020, everybody's 87.6.
But you guys run in 2020 or
And
is
in
it 2021?
2021, everybody's 91.8.
I thought he runs in 21.
Right, he's in the upper, the middle group,
Right
between
now.
president, council, and the others, and so he's already making more now than those of you who were not up.
Because he was appointed.
Right.
Because when you're appointed, I guess that's when it triggers it too. It's like an election. Yeah.
So you're making more than me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Precisely.
But I thought we were trying to get
First thing I understood all night.
Well, I think we're all equal out. Right here, 2021. Yeah, 2021 would be 9180, 9180.
2020.
He's earning his keep.
It'll be the same then.
Everybody would be the same.
This is the rate we voted for.
Yeah.
But I didn't vote for it.
Yeah. So maybe we can't vote for the amendment then, can we?
I'm not going to.
So what we're trying to do now is the 2021 rate of all council members as shown on the ordinance will not change going forward. It'll be the same rate. 2022 going forward will be the same as 2021.
Is that what your proposal was? to
Yep.
begin with?
Until amended. Until amended.
Right. Until amended.
You don't want it forever.
Yeah, you'll get asked again in 2 years.
Well, I guess it's assumed if it's ever amended, they can amend it. I guess.
Great. So moved.
Has everybody got that, what we're voting on?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All abstentions? Motion carries. 1934, letter of arrangement with the auditor of state. Keith?
This is the letter of arrangement for the audit of 2018. You can see in it, we've asked for $40,000, and that's not to exceed. It should be less, but if they come up with a federal program that they need to do additional work on, which sometimes happens, it may be the whole $40,000.
Now, we back to the auditor of state rather than a private company, we go back and forth, right?
Right, we don't decide that, they do,
Oh.
and so we do what they tell
Do they
us.
decide how much they're gonna get paid?
Pretty much.
So we don't have any negotiating ability.
You don't really have much of a choice on this, no.
Okay.
To approve?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 1935, increased expenditure for Goodyear Tire and Rubber for the sanitation department. Mr. Bacoli, what's wrong with your tires?
Thank you, Mr. President. We secured a PO in the end of January for $15,000 with the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. They're formerly operating as Wingfoot. We're asking to increase this by $25,000 more to $40,000 to get through the year. The superintendent did speak with and received quotes from North Gateway Tire, I believe Treadmax, which is the former Kaufman Tire. So I appreciate the consideration.
Are the tires all,
The large tires, these are for steering tires.
how long do they normally last?
Well, steering tire, maybe 6 months, and then they're rotated out. And on the rear tires where they tend to turn with the weight on the dual axles, those actually wear out a little sooner, but they're rotated to the inner. There's a system that the guys follow with respect to getting the most out of the tires.
And do they take the tires back, or do we have to sell them when we're done with
They
them?
do. They pick them up, they're there weekly, and they drop off retread, recaps, the new, and then take the other ones away.
Move to approve?
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And finally, 1936, expenditure of $15,000 for HSH Constructions for the streets department. Neil?
Thank you, Mr. President. So throughout the city, we have numerous areas where the storm sewers outlet, we refer to them as outfalls. whether it be detention basins, streams, and they become silted in over time. So we clean these out. A lot of the time we use our city personnel, but we have a rubber tire backhoe, an excavator is deemed more suitable at times, and the contractor is used in emergency situations and where we don't have equipment and/or staffing to do that, to do the same.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring before Finance Committee? Hearing none? Finance is adjourned.